All right, so I'm gonna point out something very important since I just rode the little boat about carbohydrates, especially with the smoothies, okay? Here's a great example of how not to waste carbohydrates. Like I said, not necessarily an example of good versus bad carbohydrates. It's just more about smart versus not so smart, okay? Let's take these for example. I got Fit and Active instant brown rice, okay? So they say brown rice is good for you, okay? Touche, true enough. We also got it Fit and Active, so I guess that's supposed to make it a little healthier. What I also have here is cauliflower rice, okay? So with my meals, with my dinners especially, I'm gonna use some rice. I kinda use it because I use chicken, vegetables, or fish and vegetables, and then also with the carbohydrate with the rice, okay? Just kind of, it's a nice mix. So I'm not actually going to use this, but I brought it so that you guys can kind of get an example of what the huge difference is here. And also, in my opinion, I don't think there's too much of a flavor difference from cauliflower rice. I bought this because I didn't really feel like making it, but it's very easy to make cauliflower rice. It's so simple. Just Google it. It's so simple, okay? So, on the back of here, we just use these for example. This is in 1 cup. 1 serving is 1 cup. This is 3/4 cup, okay? You got 180 calories in a half a cup of brown rice. You got 20 calories in cauliflower rice, okay? Like I say, we're not too much focused on the calories, but that's a huge number already, okay? Let's continue. We got 1.5 grams of fat in this brown rice. That's just a half a cup. We got 0 in the cauliflower rice. It's 2 stars so far. Carbohydrates. Let's start with the cauliflower rice, shall we? Carbohydrates in the cauliflower rice is 3 grams for 3/4 of a cup. The brown rice carbohydrates is 39 grams, okay? And that's just a half a cup. Protein, brown rice is the winner with 4 per half a cup versus 1. But this is a prime example of using your carbs wisely, okay? Now, for me, a half a cup of rice really ain't gonna do much for my appetite anyway. So I would, before I might have known about this, I might have bitten the bullet and just took a half. But at the same time, that knocks off something else that I could have used for carbohydrates, so I could have just cut them out. So now, I can even use a full cup of cauliflower rice. I'm eating 1/4 of the carbohydrate. So that's a prime example of the differences between these two. And there's across the board, but that's just a good example I wanted to bring to light. And actually, you can use like cauliflower mashed potatoes. It's a really good substitute for a lot of things. So just keep that in mind. I'm gonna keep it moving. Another example I want to point out when it comes back to carbohydrates. Now, I actually fell victim to this. I fell victim to this, so I want to share this news, okay? This is empty. I had to save this container so I could show you guys what to watch out for, okay? So this is an example. This is natural almond milk. I don't use regular milk. To each his own. I'm not really huge into dairy for a lot of different reasons. But I'm not really huge into dairy, so almond milk is what I use, especially when I'm making my shakes. Basically, it's my supplement for milk, okay? Now, I don't have the one that I normally use, but I'll use this one for an example because it does get better. So, I have been using this chocolate almond milk. I would use half. Sometimes I use vanilla, sometimes I use this, but it was sweet either way, okay? So I want to kind of show an example on this one as well. You got 120 calories, like I say, not too concerned with calories. You got 60 on the natural almond milk, original, okay? You have 22 grams of carbohydrates. And this is in 1 cup. Like I said, I'm usually making my shakes with about 4 cups, okay? So that's about 88 grams of carbohydrates just in the milk alone before we even get into the protein or whatever else we might add if we're making like a smoothie or something, okay? This one has 8 grams of carbohydrates. Now what I actually started using, I don't have that present, but I use unsweetened almond milk. Unsweetened almond milk has 2 grams. Typically it has about 2 grams of carbohydrates, okay? Now you're not going to get a lot of protein out of the almond milk. That's one of the drawbacks from almond milk versus regular milk. Regular milk is packed with protein, but it's packed with a whole bunch of other things. So I'll just use this instead, okay? So I just wanted to point that out, but be careful when you're getting your almond milk and you're making your shakes or you're using them. I know that the vanilla sweetening tastes a little better, but in the long run, if we're trying to be smart about what's going into our body, we want to be careful. There's a lot of carbohydrates in that. And like I say, if you're trying to count your macros in order to lose weight and build muscle, that's one thing that you want to pay attention to. Okay?